So, what are the general do's and don'ts of interviews at university or for university admission?
Okay, first thing, shake everyone's hand, introduce yourself.
Smile.
Clearly. Yeah, smile.
Is there a case of smiling too much and the wrong handshake, anything like that?
Well, don't be gay about it and stroke their hands.
To be honest, if anyone tells you oh, you're stroking it too hard, you're stroking it too soft, just don't worry about it, because in reality,
what are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about shaking. Anyway, we're shaking hands. Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff, and just smiling. Just do it like you normally do it.
Right. So be natural.
Yeah.
Basically, there's one really good thing to say. When you're shaking the hand, be like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm really nervous. Sorry, my hand's shaking. Sorry, my palms are sweaty." And then they know that he's actually admitting that he's really nervous, and so they do sort of, put a blanket around you. They are nicer to you in the interview.
At the end of the day, they're normal people, so they do take a mind. Everyone coming in is going to be nervous, just as long as you don't completely
flake out.
Yeah.
Smile, introduce yourself. There's always going to be a glass of water pretty much right to the top near you. Just don't touch it, even if you're really thirsty. Just take time and swallow your saliva. Don't drink the water, because they'll know they've put it there not for your comfort. They've put it there so they'll see the water shaking. They'll know how nervous you are. So just ignore the water totally. Sit sort of like this on your chair, a bit forward, and hands crossed, leaning forward over the desk. Yeah, don't sit back, really relaxed or really nervous, closed or anything. Just sit forward and invite questions. And if more often than not, one person's going to be asking you the majority of the questions, but make sure you address it to everyone. Spend equal time looking into the eyes of each person, because more often than not, there will be. For my St George's interview, I had 4 people, and one of them was a student. And they tell you this beforehand. So I tend to not really look at the student as much, but make sure you do. And for my Barts interview, I just had 2 consultants. So it was easier in that way, because you've only got 2 people to look at. Yep. But make sure you do look at everyone.
So basically avoid sort of defensive postures and give everyone equal treatment.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, in terms of the interview, everyone going in, give or take, will have pretty much they have work experience, they have good grades. So it all comes down to just being a nice person. So a lot of this is social interaction. So make sure you do address everyone. Make sure you're nice and you shake hands, you introduce yourself and everything. That stuff is really key. It's not just make them feel good. It's actually really important to make it look like you're a well-rounded person. On top of being clever, you can also be social.
Yeah, for me as well. We were in this one area for both interviews, and we had to be led to another area where the interviews were taking place, and I was just one consultant who comes and gets you, and I made a point of making small talk, just trying to get them to laugh. If you can make them laugh, it's really good in the interview. You pretty much got a guaranteed offer.
But that doesn't mean make crazy jokes, just keep it
don't make
so being natural, being relaxed, being natural, and being personable.
Yeah. Say something. What else do you have to do?
Don't waffle. And even though people are going to say, like he just said, oh, that's really obvious, you'll be surprised when it comes down to it and you're really nervous, you're going to talk for a good 5 minutes about the same thing.
Yeah.
So and plus, because the interview, all in all, is only 10-15 minutes, so you need to be really efficient with what you mention. So you need to mention good points quickly, but not too quick. You need to basically make a normal conversation and don't repeat things.
But basically, they do have a quota of questions they want to ask you, but if they don't finish it, then that's not that bad a deal. That's not a big thing.
Right.
That just shows that you're really good at talking about different things. Obviously, don't waffle, but do mention. You have to sell yourself. You've only got 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so you have to really show. Yeah, I did this, I did that. You have to show off, but you have to show off in a way that doesn't seem like you're showing off. If that makes sense. If they ask you a question which you don't know, just say, I really don't know, and offer. If there's a similar answer to a similar question, possibly suggest that, but don't make anything up. That's the worst thing. And if they ask you a question, don't sound too keen and cut them off halfway through and start answering a question. That's bad manners.
Yeah.
And secondly, if they are asking you a hard question you don't really know, don't go or don't. If there's a silence, don't fill the silence. Just let there be a pause, and you just pick up from that. Don't think that you have to fill every single lull in conversation, because you don't.
Natural pauses are fine. just to give yourself time to think. I expect anyway, as long as it's not like half a minute long. But yeah, just in general. Yeah.
Okay, what are some of the difficult questions they can throw your way during the interviews?
They'll always ask you something like, why are you coming to medicine when, if you have so and so interests, you could be a nurse or a radiologist or.
Well, not only that, just why medicine? Full stop.
Yeah.
Then you say your rehearsed answer, which I know everyone has a rehearsed answer for that. I know, but then they will ask you, why not this? Why not that? And so the big question is, why not a pharmacist or why not a nurse?
Mm-hmm.
And they're the big two because, like Becca said, you don't want to insult anyone because more often than not, you will have the whole MDT, which is the multidisciplinary team in front of you. You'd have the consultant, you'd have a student, you might have a nurse, a radiographer on the interview panel. So you can't insult anyone, say the doctor's just far superior or something like that.
Sure.
You have to also appreciate what they do in the faculty. You sort of have to praise them and praise a doctor, but also have to say why you're more suited.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like we're all pretty, like we've got very major differences which make them a good profession. So I mean, the thing with a nurse is that you have to mention that a nurse is more related to just like the palliative care of a patient and like make sure the patient in terms of like mind, like rather than body is feeling better. While a doctor is more about treatments and cures and stuff. So he doesn't have as much as a...
Doesn't spend time with the patient at all. He's more the business manager, so to speak, of the whole faculty as well, because he does oversee the nurses, the radiographers and everything, the lead consultant. So you sort of have to say that I'm really interested in cutting edge science and I would prefer to invest my time not in looking after patients holistically and at their bedside, but perhaps in the lab or with my colleagues trying to find different alternative therapies for them. So, but that is like a really difficult question.
Okay.
Another question we'll ask is, why do you want to do medicine? Which is actually different from why not a nurse, etc. And you've got to make a good reason as well, because everyone going in is probably going to mention something similar. And you can't mention something like, oh, I want to help people, or oh, like I love humanity or whatever. Like you've got to think of a good reason. And
what's wrong with those answers?
Because
they see everyone does them.
Yeah, like they see 100 students per interview session, and everyone going to go in is probably going to mention a unique answer on top of saying I like to help people just to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So if they hear you just saying I like to help people, they're going to feel like, well, that's kind of a given if you want to be a doctor. Like, why else?
I didn't do this, but now I've had experience of 2 medical school interviews. I've realised that you should actually tailor the answer to the med school. For example, at Barts, I did actually read up on this. You're based in Whitechapel at the Royal London Hospital, and it's like the biggest hospital in Europe, and they've got the helipad, which no other hospital has, and they've also got the biggest instance of tuberculosis due to there's a big immigrant population there. And so when they asked me why I wanted to do medicine, I focused it around why I want to do medicine at Barts rather than why I want to do medicine, because that will really help you. And you also have to mention your work experience. So I was lucky enough to do work experience at Barts anyway, so I mentioned that. And then you go on to say, I'm really interested in, for example, TB, and I've read up about it. I did an essay about it. Even if you haven't done it, just read up and express that. Say, I know that there's a helipad, I'd really like to get interested in that. Just the fact that it's the biggest hospital in Europe, and I'll be surrounded by, you've got the richest people coming from Westminster, the city, who want to get treated at St Bartholomew's Hospital. And you've got the poorest people in the UK living in Tower Hamlets, for example, who get treated at the Royal London. And as a medical student, you'll see both sides of the coin. Mm-hmm. And so if you mention that, then you've really got a bespoke answer to that med school. So they'll like that.
So basically, it'd help you a great deal to do a bit of research, a bit of homework on the actual school of medicine that you're applying to, and know a bit about, show them that you have actually taken the time to find out a bit about them.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
I mean, it comes to a point as well where they expect you to ask questions to them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll always say at the end, like, do you have any questions to ask about, to ask us? Mm-hmm. And that's basically asking, like, let's see if you have any interest in our university specifically. So you can't say, like, no, yeah, I'm fine, I'm just going to walk out. You have to be properly, like, being like, even if it's a question you don't even care about, just ask it. So be like, oh, does Imperial do dissections? Or whatever. That's what I asked.
No, to be honest, I disagree, because if it's in the prospectus, don't answer it, because you should have done your research, you should have read up on it. Don't ask a question necessarily that you know the answer to.
But it wasn't.
But is, trust me. But ask a question which, is sort of quirky in the sense. For the St George's one, there was St George's in, I think it was India or Pakistan, which is also called St George's Hospital, and they had an earthquake or something like that. I think it might have been some natural disaster, and it was damaged. And I know that St George's was giving relief and help. And the reason I just said, if I am lucky enough to get an offer, could I help out? My skills, something, could I go over and help them, or like how are we helping them, something like that.
Yeah.
Just something different, not like the standard questions. Or if you really don't have anything to say, just say, listen, you've been very helpful, I've read around the prospectus, I've met the medical students here today, they've shown me around, so to be honest all my questions are answered.
Okay, so
don't just say no and walk off.
So it is safe to say, no, I haven't got any questions.
Yeah,
but you have to say
it's
like,
not
well, like, yeah, obviously make it look like you have an interesting school.
Also, back to what Becca was saying, you can really shape the whole interview around what you want to. Like, for example, going back to why do you want to study medicine, I shaped it to why do you want to study medicine at Barts. And then I mentioned TB, and they picked up on that. And I just said TB, I didn't say tuberculosis, I didn't mention anything about it, I just said TB, like, I don't know, someone had told me. Then they thought they'd catch me out and say, also, why does TB have a higher prevalence and an incidence in this area? And you mentioned immigrant population, is it solely due to the immigrant population? So immediately there were questions about my science and TB, and also my ethics, and if I'm aware about just being tactful about talking about different religious, ethical groups, things like that. And so luckily I was retaking that biology module, was it health and disease? So I'd learned about TB literally the week, 2 weeks before, so I knew about it. And then I knew the trap they were setting me asking about the immigrant population, so I just tiptoed around that. And then, So yeah, you can really tailor the med school interview to how you want it to be.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, finishing on that point, they'll always ask about your hobbies and stuff. And in terms of mentioning hobbies, most of your hobbies will have some kind of relevance to medical school. So what I said was that I like to play in a band or whatever. So I put that as leadership skills and being part of a team, and always trying to sort out things, etc. And that directly relates to the role of a doctor who's supposed to work as a team and who's supposed to etc. So even if it's something you think is totally unrelated, like a random sport, it probably has a skill that can be applied to medicine. So make sure you can link that, and that's really good. I really like it when you can apply skills that you have to the profession.
So, going back to KGS or being at school, in general, your co-curriculum program is actually quite vital as well as your academic program. Yeah,
because not only do they want you to link it to skills that you'll need as a doctor or as a medical student, they also don't want you just to be the kind of guy who goes to lectures and goes home, does work, sits in a lab. They want you to go out, have fun. They want you to be well-rounded. They want you to represent the university or the med school not just academically, but on the with theatre, in sports, in music, and anything.
Right.
They prefer you to be more well-rounded, because you do have a lot of stress as a medical student. You've got a lot of work, and not only that, just emotionally, you're only 18, 19, and you're seeing patients dying and things like that. It is quite difficult to take. So they want you need a vent from that. So if it's either music, sport, like I say, they want you to have that vent, that outlet.
Yep.
So yeah, you have to mention that, not just in your personal statement, but also in interview.
Definitely, yeah.